What happens when a single act of kindness changes the course of two lives? Little black girl saves a stranger 20 years later. He returns, with a life-changing surprise, tells the powerful story of how one small gesture of compassion can ripple through time, transforming a struggling community and inspiring a man to give back in ways that no one could have ever imagined. In the heart of a small, bustling neighborhood where children's laughter mingled with the faint hum of passing cars, 10-year-old Tasha was a beacon of warmth. She was known for her bright smile and a spirit that belied the challenges she faced growing up. Raised by her single mother, Ms. Johnson, Tasha had learned early the value of kindness and courage. Life wasn't easy in their tight-knit, but struggling community. Yet Tasha's mother always said, "You don't have to be rich to have a rich heart." One sunny afternoon, as Tasha played hopscotch with her friends near the corner store, she noticed a man stumbling onto the street from an alleyway. His clothes were torn and dusty, his face bruised, and his eyes vacant with exhaustion. He looked lost, like someone carrying the weight of the world. Tasha froze mid-hop, watching as the man leaned heavily against a lamppost, clutching his side. "Don't stare, Tasha," one of her friends whispered. "He's probably trouble." Another chimed in. "Let's just go. My mama says strangers like that are dangerous." But Tasha's heart couldn't ignore what her eyes were seeing. She felt a pull deep within her, the voice of her mother echoing in her mind. Kindness isn't always easy, but it's always right. She stepped forward. "Wait," she called out as her friends began to walk away. Tasha approached the man cautiously, her small hand clutching a bottle of water she'd brought from home. "Mister, are you okay?" The man looked at her, startled. His voice was hoarse as he murmured, I just need to rest." Tasha handed him the bottle. "Here, you can have this." The man hesitated before taking it with trembling hands. He gulped the water down, his gratitude evident in his weary eyes. "Thank you," he rasped. Tasha's instincts told her he needed more than just water. She ran to her house, calling for her mother. Miss Johnson, alarmed by her daughter's urgency, came outside and saw the man. After a brief conversation, she decided to call for medical help. As they waited, Tasha sat beside the man, offering him quiet reassurance. He didn't say much, but his gaze lingered on her, filled with something she couldn't quite place. Gratitude, perhaps, or hope. When the ambulance arrived, Michael, as he introduced himself, clasped Tasha's hand. "You didn't have to help me," he said, his voice steadier now. "But you did. I'll never forget this." And then he was gone, leaving behind a memory that would stay with Tasha long after he disappeared into the chaos of the world. 20 years had passed since Tasha first met the stranger Michael, and so much had changed. Tasha was now 30, her youthful optimism tempered by the struggles of adulthood. She lived in the same tight-knit community, though the streets were quieter now, the store around the corner was closed, and the sense of hope that had once filled the air felt faint. Tasha's days were a whirlwind of work and dreams. She held down 2 part-time jobs, one at a local diner and another at a nonprofit that helped children, but all of it felt like a means to an end. Her true passion, her dream, was to open a community center for the kids who lived in the neighborhood. She wanted to create a safe place for them to learn, play, and dream, something she had never had growing up. But each step toward that dream was met with setbacks. Money was tight, and there were always bills to pay or emergencies to handle. Yet despite it all, Tasha never lost her heart. She had learned from her mother that kindness didn't depend on how much you had, but on how much you were willing to give. She was the first to lend a helping hand, offering food to a neighbor in need, or tutoring kids who struggled in school. Her generosity was something that came naturally, and she knew no other way to live. Meanwhile, Michael's life had transformed in ways that seemed almost miraculous. After that fateful day when Tasha had helped him, he had slowly pieced his life back together. He was no longer the man who had stumbled into that neighborhood with nothing. Through a combination of hard work and sheer determination, Michael had climbed his way out of his past. He had turned his life around, going back to school, learning new skills, and eventually founding a tech startup that grew into a booming business. Yet despite his success, there was always something missing, something that he had never been able to shake. Tasha's face, small and bright, lingered in his memory. the way she had helped him, without hesitation, without fear. Over the years, Michael had never forgotten that act of kindness. It had been a turning point for him, a moment that inspired him to not only rebuild his life, but to give back in any way he could. He spent years trying to track her down, but Tasha had moved around and her mother had passed away. His search had been difficult, but Michael was relentless. He knew he had to find her, to thank her, and to repay her for what she had done for him. It wasn't just a debt, it was a promise he had made to himself all those years ago. As he finally tracked her down to her small apartment, Michael's heart raced with anticipation. He had built an empire, but nothing could compare to the possibility of seeing the girl who had changed his life, the girl whose kindness had made him believe in second chances. The day Michael finally found Tasha was a quiet one, with the sun dipping low in the sky, casting a golden glow over the rundown neighborhood where Tasha still lived. He had asked around, pieced together the little information he could, and followed the traces of the woman who had changed his life 2 decades ago. The streets, once filled with children playing, now stood still, save for the occasional car passing by. But there, near the corner store, was a faded mural, a remnant of the community's past, that Tasha had once admired as a child. It was a sign. Michael stood for a moment, gathering his thoughts, then walked toward her apartment building. He knew this was the moment, the culmination of years of searching and waiting. He rang the buzzer, then waited. The door opened, and there she was, Tasha, all grown up but still carrying that same light in her eyes. "Can I help you?" she asked, looking at him with curiosity, but there was something in her gaze that softened when she saw the sincerity in his eyes. "Are you Tasha Johnson?" Michael's voice was a little shaky. She nodded slowly, her face blank with confusion. "My name is Michael. I don't know if you remember me, but about 20 years ago, you helped a stranger in your neighborhood. I was that man." Tasha's face remained uncertain for a moment, as memories stirred in her mind. Then something clicked. She blinked and slowly stepped back, her expression softening. "Wait, you're the man who I helped when I was a little girl?" Michael smiled, relieved that she remembered. "Yes, I was lost, hurt. You gave me water and helped get me help. That day, you saved my life in more ways than one." Tasha was taken aback. The memory of that brief encounter had always stayed with her, but she never imagined it had impacted him this deeply. Her heart swelled with emotion as she realized how much that small act of kindness had meant. "I can't believe it," she murmured, her eyes filling with tears. "That was such a long time ago." Michael's eyes were serious now, filled with gratitude. "I haven't forgotten, and I never will." He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out an envelope, handing it to her. "Tasha, I want to help you. You've always given to others, even when you had nothing. I want to give you something now." She opened the envelope to find a check, an amount far larger than she could ever have imagined. Michael had written a donation to fund the community center she had dreamed of for so long. This is too much," Tasha gasped, her hands trembling. Michael shook his head. "It's not enough, Tasha. You taught me the importance of kindness, of paying it forward. This is just the beginning." Together they made plans to turn her vision into reality. Michael became an instrumental part of the project, using his resources to help renovate the old building Tasha had chosen for the community center. The grand opening was a celebration of everything Tasha had worked so hard for, a place where kids could thrive, learn, and grow, just as she had dreamed. The neighborhood buzzed with excitement, and for the first time in years, there was a spark of hope. Thanks to Tasha's kindness and Michael's support, a new chapter was beginning. Not just for her, but for the entire community. As Tasha stood at the front door of the newly opened community center, her gaze drifted across the bustling room. Children ran past her, laughing and chatting, their voices echoing off the walls. Bright murals lined the walls, images of hope, strength, and unity. It was everything she had dreamed of, and more. But as she watched the kids play, her thoughts wandered back to that fateful day when a simple act of kindness had set everything into motion. It was hard to believe how much had changed. That little girl, the one who had helped a stranger in need without hesitation, was now standing at the heart of the very dream she had fought for. All those years spent juggling jobs, struggling to make ends meet, had finally led her to this moment. A place where she could give back to the community that had shaped her. Tasha's mind often returned to Michael, and how his life had intertwined with hers. Without him, none of this would have been possible. Yet, in all the time they had spent working together, he had never stopped reminding her of how much she had impacted him. "I don't know where I'd be without you," Michael had told her one day as they sat together in the center, watching a group of kids huddled around the reading corner. "You gave me the strength to believe in something better, in myself. Your kindness, it's what saved me." Tasha smiled, her heart full as she reflected on those words. It was hard to fathom how that single act of compassion, giving a stranger water, offering a moment of her time, had rippled outward to create a wave of change. It had changed Michael's life, yes, but it had also ignited her own path. For Michael, Tasha had been the catalyst for everything. She had shown him that even in the darkest of times, there was always room for kindness. His success wasn't just about building a business. It was about proving that one small act of goodness could lead to something much greater. She had unknowingly taught him the power of hope, of human connection. As the community center grew, so did Tasha's sense of purpose. It wasn't just a place for kids to come after school. It had become a symbol of the change that kindness could create. The center had brought the community together, turning an area once full of despair into a space of opportunity. During the grand opening ceremony, Michael stood beside Tasha, watching as people filled the center with excitement and pride. "This place," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "it's all because of you." The plaque on the wall read, "Tasha Johnson Community Center." It was a fitting tribute to her bravery, generosity, and the heart she had poured into everything she did. But for Tasha, the real reward was in the faces of the children who now had a place to dream. She saw herself in them, curious, hopeful, ready to face the world. Years later, as she mentored a new generation of kids, Tasha knew that the legacy of that one act of kindness would continue long after she was gone. It would live on in every child who walked through the doors of the community center, in every story of courage and compassion they carried with them. Tasha had passed on the values that had shaped her, and in doing so, had made the world a little brighter for the next generation.